Hey, Screaming Geek Media here. I'm Jerry the Geek. Today I bring you the fourth and final episode of my Evolution of Physical Media series. This will finish up the digital video disc formats with the high def content. We'll be going over the HD DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks. But before we get into that, if you like 4Ks, anything physical media, movies in general, home theater, please check out my other videos on my channel and like and subscribe and turn your bell notifications on. So this video is going to wrap up the evolution of physical media that I started a while back. I'll be covering high def DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K ultra high def. So let's go back and start with the HD DVD. It was one of the first two high def DVD formats to come out. The other one was Blu-ray. So basically it launched another format war, aka VHS versus beta. You know, we have high def and Blu-ray, they're competing formats. Let's talk a little bit about the war before we actually go into the individual formats. For HD DVD, it was developed by Toshiba, and it was expected to be the successor to DVD, where Blu-ray was developed by Sony and Philips. For high-def DVD, Toshiba developed the technology utilizing the same red lasers as used in the past, where Sony developed the blue laser technology. But from the beginning, HD DVD won the support of the DVD forum as the new standard. But Sony wasn't happy with that. They wanted, they was like, hell with you, we're going to come out with our own anyways. They just didn't like the decision and decided to keep developing the Blu-ray. In an attempt to avoid a costly format war, the Blu-ray Disc Association and the DVD forum tried to negotiate and come out with one standard, but in the end it failed. And to further complicate things, the support for the formats were pretty much divided. As far as hardware goes, for HD DVD, Toshiba was the only one making the players for that format. And all HD DVD players did have an Ethernet port included for firmware updates. Where the Blu-ray, when it was launched, actually Samsung was the first out, and then it's followed by Sony, but neither of their players included an Ethernet port. Both these formats were launched in 2006. Now in November 2006, we saw the release of Sony's PS3 with a Blu-ray drive, and Microsoft's Xbox 360 add-on, which had HD DVD drive. The PS3 outsold the Xbox add-on 5-1. So from that get-go, Blu-ray had a little heads up on that. Now in 2007, both LG and Samsung introduced players that would play both formats. But 1 year later, both companies stopped production of dual capacity drives. From a software standpoint, it was just like the hardware, it was split. HD-DVD was exclusively supported by Studio Canal, Universal, DreamWorks, and New Line, where Blu-rays was exclusively supported by Sony, Disney, and 20th Century Fox. Now the major studios, Paramount and Warner, were the only two that actually supported both formats in the beginning. And in the middle of 2007, Warner Brothers announced another format called Total High Def Hybrid Disc, which would hold both formats on one disc, one on each side. Warner demonstrated Superman Returns on both HD DVD and Blu-ray drives, but nothing was officially released. Other studios weren't interested in a third format being thrown in. Retailers would have to have another section dedicated to that, where they already had a section for HD DVD and a section for Blu-ray. So if this came out, there'd be a third section. So everything just didn't fall into place, and by the end of that year they pulled the plug. They did not release anything. In late 2007, Paramount and DreamWorks announced that they would no longer release movies on Blu-ray. So after that announcement, you're kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, HD-DVD has a leg up. But after that, leading up to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas in January 2008, Warner dropped the final bomb by saying they were going all blue. From there, the dominoes basically fell. Blockbuster and Netflix started phasing out HD DVD. Best Buy came next. Then finally, Walmart made the announcement that they were going to no longer support the HD DVD formats. That was pretty much the final nail in the coffin for the format. Because you figure if the biggest retailer in the country, Walmart, is not going to sell your product, you ain't got a chance in hell to make it. So immediately after that, I think it was like the very next day after Walmart's announcement, Toshiba said, hey, we give up. HDVD's done. Some Blu-ray, you guys won the war. That's it. But at that point, you already had a pretty good selection of HDVD titles out there. So in mid-2009, Warner Brothers started a disc replacement program. Basically, it allowed, if you had an HDVD title and you wanted a Blu-ray, instead of going out and spending the full price for a Blu-ray, you can actually get the Blu-ray at a discounted price. Basically, Warner Brothers had a site set up, had it with eligible titles. You went on the website and you chose the title or titles that you wanted. Paid the low cost. I want to say it was like $5 or $6 a piece, plus shipping. And then all you had to do was send in the actual cover from the case to prove that you actually have it. And once they received the covers, they sent out the Blu-rays and off you were. I had quite a few Warner Brothers HD DVDs, so I definitely took advantage of this. That was pretty cool. Got a boatload of Blu-rays for a decent price. And comparing the two, here's one I've actually got on both because they're not Warner Brothers, they're Paramount. I've got the Tomb Raider, the HDVD, and I've got the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray has Dolby True HD, where the HDVD has Dolby Digital Plus. Now, getting into the formats individually, the HDVD format was launched first. We'll talk a little about capacity. You're looking at 15 gigabytes for a single layer, and dual layer was 30 gigabytes. And all players work backward compatible with DVD and CD. The weird thing about the format was there was no regional coding like there was on DVD. I'm not sure why they opted out, but yeah, there was no regional coding with HD DVD. Now, the first player to hit the market was Toshiba's HD XA1. And it came out in Japan in March of 2006. In April, we saw US get its first HD DVD player. It was the HD XA1 and HD A1. Now, the XA1 sold for $799. That's pretty salty. And the HD A1 came in at $499. Now, first titles released came from Warner Brothers. The Last Samurai, $1 Million Baby, The Phantom of the Opera, and Universal's Serenity. Those were pretty much the first line of HD DVD titles. Now, they did have combo disc at the start. In HDVD, the way they did their combo disc, they actually be packaged, it would say combo at the top. They would actually put both formats on one disc, with DVD being on one side and HDVD being on the other. Now, I like the combo format. I mean, you still see it today with Blu-ray and 4K, but back then you're trying to get people to buy into a new format. People has tons of a DVD collection. So as a consumer, it's like, well, I want to get Blu-ray, but I really can't afford it yet. So it's nice that these combos were coming out with DVD. So, hey, I like this movie. I'm going to be getting Blu-ray here pretty soon. Let's go ahead and buy this, and I can watch the DVD now, and then when I upgrade to the Blu-ray or HD DVD, I've got the movie on a new format already. So that's a big reason I really like the combo packs they had. Now, the final HDVD releases came on May 27th, 2008. They were Paramount's Into the Wild and Warner Brothers' P.S. I Love You and Twister. Those were the final HDVD titles released. Now, I really liked HDVD. I actually bought both formats early on. Because of that, I wasn't sure which way they're going to go. So I was like, hell with it. I bought both. And actually, in my opinion, at the time, I think HDVD had a better picture quality than Blu-ray. I mean, Blu-ray was great, even at the beginning, but I just think HDVD edged it out, had a little bit more depth. But Blu-ray, the audio shined more on the Blu-ray. But both are great formats. I still have my HDVD player, and mine's the Toshiba HD A20. It was about $500 when it came out. I still have about 52 titles on that format, and I still play them occasionally. Most of them I do have on Blu-ray as well, so they don't get too much play, but there are a few titles that I didn't upgrade. Some of them I'm hanging on, hoping that they'll come out on 4K, so I don't want to buy the Blu-ray and then 2 months down the road, oh shit, here's a 4K I have to get. I think consumers, and we're all kind of tired of the double and triple and quadrupling dipping in our pockets for some of these. Now onto the Blu-ray. Like I said, it was developed by Sony and Philips, and it was launched in June of 2006, just months after HD DVD. Capacity of the Blu-ray was much better. We had 25 gigabytes per single layer and a 50 gig dual layer disc. Now the first player to hit the US market was a Samsung BDP 1000, and the first player from Sony was a BDP S1. A lot of the early Blu-ray players from manufacturer were plagued with bugs, and they constantly needed firmware updates. You know, a lot of them were having like load issues, and it was bad press for Blu-ray in the beginning. And due to the lack of the Ethernet port to get the firmware updates, you actually had to go online, download the updates, burn onto a CD or DVD, and place it in your player and update your player that way. Kind of a real pain in the ass. I remember I had to do that with my first Blu-ray player a couple times. Eventually Blu-ray players were equipped with Ethernet ports and later on updated with Wi-Fi. Another issue with early Blu-ray players was, even though they were all compatible with DVDs, some early models had issues playing standard CDs. Also, some players could play video CDs, Super Audio CDs, and even DVD audio disc. Another ramp up in technology for Blu-ray would be the hard coding technology. Standard DVDs were very susceptible to scratches and whatnot. So for Blu-ray, because of the way the laser reads how close the information is to the surface, they developed some harder coatings to use. Now for regional coding, unlike HDVD where it had no region coding, the Blu-ray technology did include regional coding. Their regional coding for Blu-ray actually used letters instead of numbers. You know, the DVD had numbers, 1 to 9. Blu-ray actually used letters, and actually only had 3 regions, so A, B, and C. Early on, Blu-ray still used the MPEG-2 compression technology that was used with DVD, but just months later in September 2006, they switched to newer compression technologies like MPEG-4 AVC and VC1, and also the early releases only had Dolby Digital 5.1 or DTS 5.1, and it was soon after that it was replaced with Dolby True HD and DTS HD Master Audio tracks. Bit rates, we talked a little bit about on DVD, so I talked about some of the audio bit rates, comparisons. I thought I'd do the same thing, talk a little bit about the bit rates of a Blu-ray disc. We have the lowest one, of course, the standard Dolby Digital had a 640 kilobytes per second bit rate. Dolby True HD, we ramped up to 1.5 to 3.4 megabytes per second, and it actually fluctuates depending on what you're listening to, up and down. Dolby Atmos, it would go from 3 to 7 megabytes per second. So Dolby Atmos, you got really good bit rates on. DTS 5.1, standard 1.5 megabytes per second. But then the DTS HD Master Audio tracks, it ramped up to 3.5, 4.5 megabytes per second. So it ranks right up there with Atmos. The DTS Master Audio has a very high bit rates. And then they had some other tracks that are an uncompressed PCM. It basically had the best audio track you can get on Blu-ray, and it got up to 6.9 megabytes per second. Video bit rates were average 20 to 25 megabytes per second. So it kind of gives you a good idea, what you're looking at as far as how things evolved from DVD, and there's different comparisons between the different audio tracks. Now, some of the early Blu-ray releases included 50 First Dates, The Fifth Element, Hitch, House of Flying Daggers, Underworld Evolution, Triple X, and The Terminator. And just like HDVD, Blu-ray came out with their own combo packs, the Blu-ray and DVD. And some of them actually included the digital as well. But unlike HDVD, where it had on one disc, Blu-ray separated them onto 2 separate discs. The DVD and the Blu-ray. And in all digital, you'd enter the code. Now, if I remember right, I don't have anymore, some of the early digital codes weren't the same. It actually would have a separate disc. It was called digital copy, and you put into your computer and download it and go through that and then have access on your other devices. That was kind of weird, and I forget when it was they switched from that to an actual code before the streaming services. And there was another early one was ultraviolet, they called that, and that kind of went by the wayside. And digital codes now you can access through Movies Anywhere and Vudu are your two biggest ones, and they link together. If you actually enter a digital code for Movies Anywhere, it pretty much automatically goes to your Vudu account, and vice versa. Some go back the other way and some don't. So my two accounts, my Vudu account has way more movies than my Movies Anywhere. Some codes will redeem on one but not the other. There are all kinds of different redemption sites out there. So if you get a code and if it doesn't work, try different ones, because I found some that they expire, but yet they might not expire if you try another site. If all mine, even 3 and 4 years after expiration date, most of my codes actually do work. I've only had a handful not work, but yeah, I try multiple sites, and eventually one of them will probably work. But now the Blu-ray format, it came out in 2006, so it's definitely it's grown. It's been a very good format and still going strong. And if you haven't got a Blu-ray, you can get Blu-ray players as cheap as $55 now. Now I use my 4K player to play all my DVDs, Blu-rays, and DVDs. And I have about 770 Blu-rays in my collection. My disc collection ain't as much as some of the other YouTubers out there that have thousands and thousands of discs. That would be nice. But I'm limited budget. I can't buy everything I want. Even if I did have the money, the wife probably wouldn't let me. But I've liked Blu-ray. Compared with when DVD came out, I was disappointed with the format, but eventually evolved and got better. Even though I liked HDVD better at the beginning, I think the compression techniques that the studios and manufacturers were using definitely evolved and got better, because the newer Blu-rays definitely outshine some of the old ones. Now for the final one of the formats, we have the Ultra HD Blu-ray, also known as 4K Ultra HD, or simply just 4K, you'll see. Basically, it's just an enhanced variant of the Blu-ray, and it supports 3840 by 2160 resolution, up to 60 frames per second. And also a big thing is it supports high dynamic range, which you'll hear a lot about HDR when it comes to 4K. Capacity-wise, single layer 50 gig, 66 gigabyte dual layer, then there's a triple layer 100 gigabyte disc. Unlike DVD and Blu-ray, the 4K format does not have regional coding. Now for the hardware, Samsung's UBD K8500 was a first 4K player, and it retailed for $318. Not bad for new technology. Panasonic's first one was the DMP UB900. It came out in September 2016, and it was $700. Pretty salty, but new technology I can understand. The Panasonics are very highly rated, and there's still some of them are still a little pricey. Not that much. I think you can get them for $250 to $400 for a really good one. Now Sony's first 4K player came. It was the UBP X1000 ES and sold for $500. It came out in spring of 2017. And also other devices supporting the 4K technology was Microsoft's Xbox One X, the One S, Series X, and Sony's PlayStation 5. And from a software standpoint, the first Ultra HD Blu-ray disc to get released in the US was on February 14, 2016. We had Sony, Lionsgate, Warner Brothers, and 20th Century Fox. In June 2016, we saw releases from Paramount. In August, we saw releases from Universal. And finally, late August 2017, we finally saw the first 4K releases from Disney with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And like the previous formats that have combos, 4K, many titles are combo discs where they come with a Blu-ray and possibly digital. And a little bit about the bit rates, like the other ones I've talked about. thought I'd just share some of the bitrate numbers for the 4Ks as well. For audio, the Dolby Atmos clocked in 3 to 5.5 megabytes per second, sometimes jumping to 10 or 11 depending on what you're listening to. Dolby True HD, you got an average of 5 to 11 megabytes per second. DTS Master Audio, you got 2.3 megabytes per second on up. Now the video rates being higher resolution, we saw 50 to 80 megabytes per second for video bit rates. Within the Ultra HD format, I early on mentioned that had HDR, which is high dynamic range. Now within HDR, there's multiple formats. Of course, we got the HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and of course Dolby Vision, which you'll hear a lot about Dolby Vision. That's been supported from early on. HDR10 is basically a standard HDR, has what was called a static metadata. Basically, the depth, bit depth, color volume, and all that shit. It just kind of does, it's a whole video all together, where there's a dynamic metadata, which is specific for each frame or each scene of a video. HDR10 doesn't have the dynamic metadata, just static, where the HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision both have the dynamic metadata. Differences between HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, because they're actually competing formats. Dolby Vision actually has an annual license fee required for content creators, and also the manufacturers have to pay a per unit fee. But suppose it's less than $3 per unit, where HDR10 Plus was developed by Samsung. Samsung considers theirs an open standard, royalty-free, but it still has an annual administration fee. So, they're only paying a yearly rate compared to a per unit rate. And as far, basically everything I've read, the HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision are pretty equal as far as quality goes. It just boils down to the support, the disc, if they have what format it has. Your TV and your DVD player actually has to have those, which are very limited. As far as hardware, hardware supporting both. For TVDs, I found Hisense, TCL, and Vizio are the only ones currently supporting both HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. And 4K players, right now all I've seen is Panasonic has some models supporting both. And as far as content, I think Dolby Vision has a leg up. There's a lot of titles out there, Dolby Vision, but HDR10 Plus is gaining some support. Warner Brothers is a big supporter of it. I got a few discs that have that. When I got into 4K, HDR10 Plus was very limited, so I wanted Dolby Vision. My Sony 4K player is the UBP X700, and my TV is the TCL. It's a QLED, 65R625 at 65 inch, and it has Dolby Vision. It has a built-in Roku, which that was a big seller for me, as I wanted a Roku built-in so I could eliminate my Roku device. That's why with Samsung, as good as Samsung TVs are, they will not support Dolby Vision. So be very wary about, if you get a Samsung TV, you're not going to get that. You're going to get the HDR10 Plus. But hopefully now, in this time point, things are going. I'm sure some other companies, hopefully we'll see Sony and LG start coming out with some models that have that supports both HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. And hopefully we'll see some more players that support both instead of just Panasonic. I love my Sony player. We bought our player in 2019. That was when we started upgrading to 4K, and we planned on getting a TV, and then the finances kind of hindered this, so we held off. We didn't get our TV until early 2020, and by then I'd already had a couple dozen 4K titles just waiting, begging to be watched. And the first one we watched when we got our TV, Aquaman. Fantastic. We knew before watching it, everything we've seen about it, we'd never seen the movie. We knew it had a lot of colors, so this was the first one. It did not disappoint. But yeah, so far I'm very happy with the 4K format. It's still really hasn't caught on as far as sales, Because really, quality-wise, it's going from a Blu-ray to 4K. Most movies, you don't see a big uptick in the quality. A lot of it is going to be like, I have to agree with the remastering of old titles. They look phenomenal on 4K. You can check out some of my reviews I've got on my channel. Movies like Jaws, It's a Wonderful Life, Wizard of Oz. Those movies are incredible in 4K. Don't get me wrong, the new movies look just as good, but at the same time, if you compare it with a Blu-ray, they're going to be almost as good on a Blu-ray because it's a new movie. They do not have to be restored. There are a few exceptions where they screw up a Blu-ray release. I know Jeff at Films at Home mentioned, I think the Godzilla came out in 2014, I think. The Blu-ray was really bad. And I remembered I got the Blu-ray and it was so dark, and I didn't enjoy the movie because those scenes that were so dark I couldn't make out what was going on. But man, the 4K kicks ass. They corrected those problems. They had some more color and it wasn't as dark. You can make out everything in it. So there are some exceptions where studios kind of screw up a Blu-ray transfer, and then they have to go back and fix, and hopefully they do it on a 4K. And so far I've got about 178 titles on 4K. There's a lot of them that came out this year I'd like to pick up, but kind of spending at the moment's kind of put us on hold. I look for the cheap rates. I know, to spend the $25 to $30 on a new title is crazy. When I just used to spend more than that on Laserdisc, but now I bitch and moan about spending that on 4K. But being limited funds, I'm more selective to what I get. So I go on eBay. I look for sellers out there that have copies available where they kept the digital code, or they don't have the slipcase. They wanted the slipcase, and when they want to sell the movie, I don't care about the digital code. I don't need it. I care less about a slipcover. Some people are nuts about it. Have to have a slipcover. Have to have a slipcover. I don't give a shit. Sell me the movie the cheapest possible way, best quality. That's what boils down to me. So I got Green Mile 4K with a no slipcover. It actually came with the digital, which surprised me, but I got it for $15. So that was a damn good deal. I got Moonfall for $18. I'd like to get Ambulance. I know that's a highly rated disc right now. I'm still looking for deals for that. So that pretty much wraps it up for my Evolution of Physical Media series. I hope you watched them and I hope you enjoyed them. It's been a very long road getting all this information together. I know it's a lot to digest. I hope you've taken the time to actually watch them. In all, we're talking a total of 17 physical media formats that movies have been released on that I've known about. If I've missed any, please let me know in the comments below. If any thoughts on anything, please let me know, because I know as I was doing this research on these, there was several formats and all that I never knew about. So this was definitely a learning experience for me, and also nostalgic, looking back on some stuff. How my movie collection started with the VHS. Now, something I did for shits and giggles is, to look back, looking at all these formats, actually looked at some movies to kind of see how many different formats a movie was released on. And I did a little spreadsheet of some popular ones. The top ones I found was Alien and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Both those movies were released on 12 of the 17 formats. Other ones, First Blood, The Fog, Rocky IV, Superman the Movie, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Top Gun. They all I found on 11 of the formats. Blade Runner, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and the 3 original Star Wars movies. They're all got released on 10 of the formats. Rest of these all got released on 9 of the formats. We've got Dark Crystal, Escape from New York, Ghostbusters, Goonies, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Jaws, The Karate Kid, Patriot Games, RoboCop, and the original Terminator. So it's kind of cool to go through and see some of these. I know personally, I like Alien being one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm trying to go through and get it in all the different formats. And I've got quite a few of them. I'm only missing a few. But it's one of those titles that to get it on a couple of formats is very expensive. I know the VHD format, it's available on, looking at $100, $150 for it. The digital VHS copy, I saw one I could have got for $100, but my wife would have shot me if I bought that. Maybe next year during tax season, maybe I can butter her up and get some of the nice. I hope you enjoyed these videos. I hope they're informative. You've learned something or just taken a trip down memory lane. I enjoyed doing these. Please check out my other videos, and I got the reviews. Plus, I'll be adding some more here soon. So please like and subscribe, turn your bell notifications on, and we'll see you again. Geek out!